podcast for those who suffer, which is everyone.
It's a space where we can speak honestly about what it feels like to be in desolate places without losing hope.
Welcome to In the Thicket.
Hello friends, welcome back to episode 3 of our Lenten series. Today is the first week that we're going to talk about fasting. Today in this episode we're sharing what we are doing for fasting and how we came to the decisions that we came to. And we talk a little bit about what it means to fast. Why do we fast in the first place? And how can we make sure that the things that we're choosing to do for fasting are actually supporting the overall goals of fasting? We hope it's helpful for you and that you'll join us next week when we'll be talking about St. Ignatius of Loyola and the first principle and foundation. God bless you.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome.
Welcome to In the Thicket. I am Nicole.
And I'm Erin.
And I'm Rachel.
And it's good to have you with us today. So we're now, by the time this episode is coming out, I think we'll be in kind of the thick of Lent. Or should I say in the thicket of Lent? Oh, okay, sorry.
You had to do it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No.
So fasting, although I think for us recording, we are the Saturday after Ash Wednesday. So we're just getting into it. We were just talking about what we're drinking right now because I am a tea drinker, like as in hot tea. So if you're from the US, yes. I know I have to clarify that I mean hot tea.
Right.
Now I learned this. Now I moved to Nashville. I can't just go and order tea because they assume I mean like iced tea or sweet tea. Anyways, it's complicated. Right. Tea is complicated. Yes. Okay, so I have my husband's large, like it's like a Notre Dame.
It's a very big
club mug.
It's almost as big as Nicole's head.
It's probably like.
I think it is
30
as big
ounces.
as Nicole's head.
Yeah. If I hold it, further like this, then it looks bigger.
Oh, yeah.
But if I actually put it close to my head,
I mean, it's still pretty much
comparable.
Yeah,
absolutely comparable.
I mean, so it definitely is shaped differently because your head doesn't narrow towards the top. Like
my head does not look like a mug, and it doesn't have a handle. But otherwise, it's pretty similar. So right. And then Rachel, you have tea. No, you have.
Well,
would you like to tell
I'm
our
a tea
listeners?
Drinker. I'm a tea drinker as well, but I just had this disgusting tea that is supposed to be very good for me for some health things that I've got going on. That I'm really praying is really good for me because it tastes like mud and I really dislike it, which is so gross. But to sort of cleanse my palate, I just have some like hot water. But the thing that is cool about what I'm drinking is the mug, which is my mug also, which is a Lion King mug. And it has Rafiki and
Beautiful.
Simba on it. And I think we've had this mug, like this is like from my childhood. Like I think this mug is probably
that's amazing.
More than 20 years old.
Like from when the original Lion King was released, and it was literally a collector's mug or something.
Sweet. Yeah.
That's fun.
I was drinking a coffee. I did finish the coffee. And I don't know how we're friends. Like the difference between coffee and tea drinkers is
big deal.
Like it's a big deal, but we've overcome the odds. Yeah.
We have,
Still maintain our deep friendship, even despite the extreme rift.
The ontological difference of the coffee and tea drinkers.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel myself becoming very defensive internally. And I'm like, yeah, this is real. Like,
yeah. It's real.
I was just going to say, I keep getting these advertisements on Instagram. I'll log in to do some, excuse me. I have a little bit of a froggy left over in my throat from a cold in case anybody's wondering if I'm dying or not. Not froggy. Yes, it's a little froggy.
Sorry, I'm just adjusting my pants. Okay.
It's a cuter word than like loogie or like.
Oh, yeah.
Who says that?
Right? I don't know. I'm not sure.
So
Maybe
shocking.
Young kids in 80s movies, I think that's where they say
okay. Well.
Anyway, so I keep seeing these advertisements for this stuff called mud water. I don't know if you.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I have.
So it's like this coffee.
That's not what I'm drinking, but
stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, why would you market it that way?
I don't know. I keep seeing them. I'm like, this is offensive to me. Like,
I mean, it kind of looks like mud. This mud water stuff. It does look like mud.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm pretty sure that I got my sister to drink mud as a kid. Like not drink it, but like, when you're like outside and you're playing and you're in Winnipeg and it's springtime and everything is melting and there's still a lot of snow on the ground. And so you make like mud soup, with snow and mud. And then you're 5. And so you convince your sister to like sip it because
Yeah. 'Cause it tastes
Anyway,
good. Yeah,
it's
totally.
good.
She's alive, so that's
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah,
everybody's
that's
fine.
right.
It's
Probably
good
has
for
really
you when
great
you're a
like
kid.
what is like gut bacteria,
Immunity. Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
so
definitely ate
I
mud
was doing
when
a
I
good
was
thing.
young. Yeah. Mhm.
I did
Great.
not. I was
Sounds
definitely one of
delicious.
those kids that knew that mud was mud, and I was like, "That's not for eating." I love food, and I was like, "That's not it." You know?
This is not food.
Yeah,
Hi,
this is
good
not
face.
food.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know why, but it just reminded me of a story that one of my friends who's a guy told me once about how he was playing with his brothers outside and they were making, there's like an old barrel and they were making soup in it and it
Yes.
just had like mud and rainwater. And then he
Yes.
convinced his brother to poop in it.
Oh.
I know. Which
All
is-
right. Well,
Nobody ate
Well,
it though.
thank
Thank
God. I was really hoping the story wasn't moving further in that direction because I was like, that's just
Erin, the amount of poop stories that you have
I
is like unlike
know.
Yeah,
anyone
it
that
is.
I
It's
have
true.
ever met.
I
It's
know.
really, it's a marvel.
It is.
I
I'm just
know.
going to segue us right into our topic
Perfect.
today
That's
now.
good. We're not going there.
Which is fasting. I feel like actually this conversation kind of fits. We've listed some things that
Yeah.
actually you shouldn't fast from. You probably just shouldn't eat altogether,
Yeah,
like
that's
mud
right.
water and various types of mud water and
Yes. Yep.
all those things. Anyways, okay. So prayer, we talked in the last couple of weeks about prayer. And this week we're going to, and next week as well, talk about fasting. And so we're doing the same kind of format where we have two little kind of shorter episodes. And the first one, we're going to talk about our own experiences of fasting currently in this Lent and maybe in the past a little bit too. And next week, we'll talk about fasting in the context of some of the writings of Saint Ignatius, who helps us to discern how to fast and what makes sense to fast. So maybe I'll start with you, Erin. What is your fasting like this year? How are you, or maybe should we backtrack and just sort of define fasting first?
Oh yeah, we could do that.
Okay. So, well, I always going to defer to you guys since you've actually studied theology. Wants to give us a good.
Want to give us the fasting definition, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know is there an official catechism?
Oh, yeah, there's an
one?
official. Oh,
okay,
yeah.
you
So-
go for
okay.
it because I don't know it. Yeah.
So the official kind of fasting thing is that a day of fasting should be one meal that's like a lesser meal than kind of usual, and then two other small meals that together don't make up the bulk of the one actual meal that you have. So like
Ash
it would be
Wednesday.
like two snacks, like two snacks, and then kind of a low ball meal, if you want to call it that. And then abstinence would be like no meat. If you're doing no meat. So like Fridays of Lent and Ash Wednesday would be no meat for sure, but many people do do all their if they do fasting on other days during Lent, they'll also do no meat.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so wait, that's something, yes, correct. That is right. But I was thinking more like fasting in terms of like
The meaning.
like if you're choosing to fast from something specific, not on an official fasting date. But that's really important. I'm really glad you said that, Erin, because I feel like I actually had a lot of conversations with people about Ash Wednesday this year about like what are we supposed to do and that kind of thing. And a lot of people didn't people did not necessarily know, but I've realized, you kind of assume that you know, but it's good to have the conversation again and remind yourself, even for me. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, and so why do we fast then? What's the meaning of fasting?
There was a priest who gave the homily at Ash Wednesday, and it was was it? No, it was yesterday when I was at Mass, and he was talking a little bit more about fasting, and he was like, we fast for 3 reasons. I'm not sure if I can remember the 3 that he said, but I was like, one is because it's a way of reminding ourselves about the eternal feast of heaven. So it's like reminding ourselves that this life is not actually the eternal feast of heaven, and that everything will be satisfied in heaven. And then one is about mortifying our own desires. So it's like, which is kind of what we're talking about today, like self-discipline. And then I forget what the third one is.
I mean, maybe it's just with connecting this with like reminding ourselves, maybe in the eternal feast of heaven context, like when we hunger, what we're really hungering for. I guess it's the eternal feast of heaven.
Yeah.
Could it be something about like joining the sufferings of Christ or something like that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Maybe
too.
I could make that up. Maybe. So Yeah. So there's lots of reasons we fast. So what are you guys doing for Lent this year? Aaron, what are you doing?
Oh, what am I doing? I was going to make Rachel go first. Go first, Rachel.
Okay,
go
I
first.
can go
Okay.
first.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just sorry. I'm still thinking about, so like basically sorry, my brain
Yeah,
is like
go,
stuck
go.
on our reasons or the meaning for fasting.
Let's
So
do
it's
that.
like in a way, like detachment, right? And then
Yeah.
like a reminder of what we really truly hunger for, like, and then offering up our sufferings with the suffering of Christ. Those are good.
And the last one, that's how I remembered it. It's solidarity. It's solidarity
Right.
with those in the world who don't have food, right? So there's
Right.
that element of being able to be united with our brothers and sisters who are lacking.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So we could say 4 reasons then.
Yeah.
3 from the priest and the one that I made up.
Yeah,
Right,
I like the one you made up.
Probably
Thanks,
like
Rachel.
10 reasons. We're
Yeah,
just
Probably.
lots.
Yeah.
So so this year I have a bunch of health things going on, and I'm supposed to, well, I mean, it's not like a doctor ordered diet, but sort of working with different people, realizing like, okay, I think if I adjust my diet certain ways, it will be helpful for me. So my fasting commitment, which is kind of maybe a bit of a cop out, it's not actually a diet or a specific kind of food thing. It's a commitment. Well, it is indirectly, because it's a commitment every week to plan my food that week and to sort of stick to that plan. So it's sort of the fasting of like not giving into my spontaneous kind of desires. And I mean, I'm not going to be like super, super rigid. If anybody knows me, it's like, that's impossible for me. But like, within the context of whatever my guide is for that week, to be actually to stay within those boundaries and to stay within that plan. So yes, that's my fasting.
That's
nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think what strikes me with that, Rachel, and I'm going to give us a little preview actually of the second half of this fasting, but St. Ignatius talks about excuse me, we are to use the things of this world only to the extent that they help us to this to the end of praising God and serving God, and that we rid ourselves of the things in the world to the extent that they get in the way of this end. And even like having something health wise that our bodies we're not just sort of spiritual bodies, but actually sometimes we have to do things like related to health, related to making sure that our bodies are whole so that we can serve God in this world, right? And that sometimes just following the doctor's orders basically, and drinking mud water and all of those things, like maybe that is like, it's like your fast has been given to you in a sense in that way, right?
Yeah. It does sort of feel like that. And I will say like, so yeah, because there is a bit of discretion in what I'm able to do and what I'm not able to do. And I think for me, and we talked about this the last episode, one of the hardest things that I go through is like consistency and being consistent. So in some ways, just the discipline of, because I don't have to do this. I could just sort of like wing it every day and just generally eat, in quotes, like healthier, and no one's sort of like on me about that. But I think, it was just sort of like you said, it was sort of given to me with my circumstances, that there was like this invitation to enter into a little bit more disciplined experience of my food. And I mean, I should say too, like I know a lot of people sometimes like struggle with food in different kinds of ways, like in terms of controlling their food and things like that. And I don't have those kinds of struggles. So, that's also something, because like you said, Nicole, we're not just spiritual beings, we're whole people. And so these are things to take into account, I think, when you're discerning your fast. And for me, those are not issues that I have. I love me some food. So I I have sort of freedom in that area of my life. So this is very good for me to sort of be more disciplined and specific about what I'm eating, that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's
also
not like one size fits all.
Yeah, exactly. It's not one size fits all. And it reminded me of another thing that the priest was saying, of like, sometimes like we do have to look at our motivations for fasting, because if our motivation is, if there's a part of us that wants to do something extreme because then we can be the best faster, the best fast, or you know what I mean? Like, if somebody asks us, they're like, oh, actually, I'm doing a bread and water fast for all of Lent. Like, that's, well, and or like if we're fasting to lose weight, or if we're, like there's different, and that the things that we're doing for fasting should support like one of the reasons for fasting, if that makes sense, right? Like if it's
Yeah,
like,
for sure. Yeah.
like for me, it's definitely self-discipline, like just being disciplined, kind of like not being spontaneous in my eating of like, oh, I just feel like this, or I'm just gonna do this, or I'm not gonna pay attention to this or whatever, just eat. Like I just want to be deliberate in my eating so
Yeah.
that what I'm eating is actually serving my body in terms of health, in terms of energy, um and and yeah, and that it's like, and that I'm not eating like, for example, so for me, for fasting, what I'm doing is I cut out things that are just like extraneous, so like sugar stuff, or chips, or like things like that are more snacky things, because I don't need them. And then I also cut out eating like nothing after 8 p.m. Unless I'm like super hungry for some reason. But that was kind of balanced with that I tend to get migraines, and that happens more if I get really hungry. So
Right.
so even for fasting days, like Fridays of Lent, I actually have to be a little bit careful. Like I do need to eat some bread regular, like I'll eat less on Fridays and I'll eat less on Wednesdays, but I do have to pay attention and make sure that I am eating enough, that I'm not gonna go into headaches, because that's not what
Yeah.
that's not what the Lord, like, he doesn't want fasting to be like damaging to my health, right? But
Right.
and then yeah, so then if I eat after, because I know if I eat after 8 o'clock, like it just makes me feel a little bit more sluggish, and it doesn't give me time to digest stuff before I go to bed and things. Like it's not the best for your health to eat right before bed. That's, I think, a lot of nutritionists will say that. So it's kind of like those common sense things that I'm trying to do, but it's also helping me to be disciplined, because then I have to like think about it. Or when I have like a craving, I'm like, ooh, this would taste good. Then it's like like I need to deny myself that intentionally, and it's good for my self-discipline, because
Yeah.
I definitely need to grow in that area. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I relate a lot.
And I think that's a really good thing. And this is something that I've worked, and I'll share what I'm doing for fasting too, but talking with spiritual director and priest to be like, where is it that God is calling you to grow this
Yeah.
Lent, and how can the fasting serve that? Right. So if
Yeah.
it's like self-discipline, then
Mhm.
great. Like you're saying, Erin, it's like, I think that's really beautiful too, because it's like, okay, limiting certain things, but also it's not just what you eat. It's like, what leads to that? Is it just an
Right.
impulse, or is it like, I'm doing this so that I don't get a migraine, or I'm doing this because it's like, this is my meal time, or all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's cool. Yeah. I so Nathan and I started attending Byzantine. I reference this now probably like every episode, it seems like, because it's like an ongoing kind of new and interesting thing in my life. But yeah, a Romanian Byzantine church here in, or I guess it's a mission. It's not like a full-on church yet. It's really small. And part of in the Byzantine rite, fasting is
Intense.
intense. So it
So
starts on like the Monday before Ash Wednesday is kind of like the Ash Wednesday in a sense. So that's the day that you fast, which is usually like one meal. And then you abstain for all of Lent from all meat and fish and all dairy, including eggs. So basically you're vegan for Lent. And then the week before, sort of Ash Wednesday week, is called, well, that's the week where you started abstaining from dairy, and the week before you started abstaining from meat. So you kind of taper down in the weeks before. And so that's sort of what's recommended. And there's sort of like a minimum fast, and then that's like the minimum. And then there's the maximum, which is like there's more fasting that you can do. And then
like there's like oil
abstinence
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So oil and wine. I think you're not supposed to have alcohol as well during this time. So it's like vegan and no alcohol and stuff. So, but with the caveat, it's like, here's what's recommended. Discern it for yourself. Like,
Right. Yeah. Well, and I
and
mean, for
so-
you, like protein is important for you. Like I think we talked about that before. Like,
yeah, and it's so, and I think that's something that I was actually having a lot of anxiety coming into this, because I have had just like a evolving relationship with food my whole life. And like, I'd say especially in my 20s, where for a while I thought that I needed to eat a certain way. So I like was very controlled in my eating, and I made sure that I had like meat all 3 meals. And then I was told, actually, no, you don't have these this health thing that you thought you had, and you can eat whatever you want. And so then it was like, oh, I can just, so then it's been trying to figure out what actually works for me. And oh, maybe I don't need all of this meat all the time, but then sometimes I do. And so it's this, and I'll get really bad brain fog if for some reason I'm not haven't eaten the right combination of things or whatever. And I still don't quite understand why that is. So the idea of being vegan was kind of scary for me because I was like, how will this affect me? I don't know. Or just fasting. If I don't have breakfast, I struggle very much. And all my courses that I teach are morning courses.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so anyway, so it was just a thing where, but then, and I also, my tendency is I can easily become very controlled and very structured. So I've had a couple of years of my life where I had the exact same thing for breakfast and the exact same thing for lunch every single day. And I was totally fine with that. And then I had basically 5 different meals that I rotated for supper. Like I can get very, very structured, very controlled. And at times it's been connected with like anxiety and then not eating enough and losing weight really quickly and just like getting unhealthy. So I know that all of those things are part of my relationship with food or have been. And so then that coming into this Lent, I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do here? So it's good. And then, but with my husband, he's more of like, okay, wants to be more disciplined and really live this up because he's like the opposite tendency. Right. But we're trying to do this together. So that's been the challenge of like, well, how do we actually do this as a couple? Right. So yeah. So had to have some good conversations with our priest and then with my spiritual director. And both of them essentially said the same thing of like, okay, both of you can discern like in terms of like, where do I need to grow spiritually and how can this fast help in this way? And what do I need to do in this fast? So for Nathan, that might be being more diligent and being more like strict. For example, he's going on a retreat this weekend with a bunch of students and they're probably just going to have whatever retreat food, but he like cooked up some tofu for himself and brought like little things of meat, like brought food for himself so that he can still be vegan the whole weekend. Right. Yeah. Whereas for me, I've had a couple days where I get home from work and I am brain foggy. I get like a panicky feeling and all of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat some eggs or some tuna or just some little bit of protein. And that's what I need. But it's interesting. The other part of the fast that's been, that I've needed to add is related to like social media and technology. And that's where I felt a call, for example. And so I already decided, okay, I'm only going to check all my, news or social media like once per day. But it was interesting. So I woke up this morning and I spent some time like checking this stuff. And then I had my adoration hour and I was like, I am struggling to connect in like with the Lord. I am struggling to pray because my mind is already kind of gone into zombie tech mode, whatever, this morning. Yeah. And that was like my takeaway from adoration of like, okay, I think once a day is still good. Like moderation. For me, moderation is harder than all or nothing. So if I was just to say no technology, that would be easy, but moderation is hard. But I think I just need to move it to the end of the day. Like not start my day with checking all my phone stuff, which I think is going to be really hard for me. So anyway, that's my long-winded explanation of my Lent.
Because it was like, I feel like I'm mining this one priest's homily for like all of the treasures about this. Because the other thing that he said was that fasting and prayer go hand in hand, right? Like that that our fast should actually be contributing to our prayer life. So like if I'm, because again, I talked about that last time, I think about prayer, like that I'm not using social media or not using technology or trying to use like distraction, like not watching so much, or anytime when I feel like I just want to distract or go into that mode of like not going into that mode and spending time with the Lord. So it's like I can fast from those things, but why am I fasting for those things? Like it should be that it then becomes this place to enter into a communion with the Lord in a deeper way, right? And so it makes sense that they go hand in hand,
Yeah. No, and even for me, I feel like I can really relate to that because my idea, and I think this really, like, I think you discern your fast, right? I mean, we've all mentioned that. So it's like, you don't just you can arbitrarily pick some, there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of times if we're, in our relationship with God, I think it does come out like the sort of inspiration for our fast for Lent comes from somewhere that God God kind of gives it to us most often. I think there have been some Lents I'm like, well, I'm not really getting anything. So, chocolate, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
but, which is fine, which is a really admirable fast. But yeah, I think for me, this idea was also like, so every weekend when I do the plan for my week, that's not just me sort of practically planning it. That's like a time of prayer. So,
Right.
like in a time of prayer is how I'm going to plan for the week, because part of the plan too is to feel the lack, like to plan my week so that I am feeling a lack, because that's important. It's not just important because it's like we're masochists or something we need to feel, but like, yeah, to have that reminder of a kind of hunger of like, oh, so one of the things for me is going to be like every day during the week, from like Monday to Saturday, I'm going to have, for this coming week, I'm going to have oats for breakfast, which are fine. But I'm not one of those people who's like, I love oatmeal. Like it's fine, So like, I know for myself that when I go and make my oats for breakfast, I'm like, I really just want like, toast with butter. And like, that's kind of what, and I know that I want that. So but it's good for me to not have that. So it's like, okay, so I'm not fasting in terms of feeling hungry, but I know that it's going to inspire me to sort of be like, okay, this is a bit of a sacrifice, and it's a tiny one. It's really relatively.
We underestimate though how much those little mortifications can do. Like
Yeah.
over time, like getting into the used to thing of like, I'm going to choose the thing that satisfies me just a little bit less.
Yes.
And all of those add up over time. It's like it flexes that.
You just become more
mortification muscle,
free.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
The sense of like, well, I have to have this. I need this because I won't be happy without it. That weakens. It becomes less of a
right.
whole-
Yep.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to continue this conversation next week for you in like 2 minutes when we pause and start our recording again for us. But thank you for joining us. If you want to share what you're doing to fast, and like what have you discerned? Where is God calling you? And maybe that's like a reflection question of like, in your prayer, what are you recognizing is an area of growth, and how can fasting help to meet that in order for you to serve God and serve the people around you this Lent?
Yeah.
There we go. All right.
We'll talk to y'all next week.
You
got
a shout out. We wanted to do a shout out.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was at last weekend, the New York Encounter, which is this Catholic conference run by Communion and Liberation. And I tweeted this, and I got, I have like 5 followers on Twitter or something like that. But like, some people were like, I tweeted, this is the most underrated, high caliber Catholic conference that I've been to. And then New York Encounter like picked it up, and but I think it's really true. There's just like so many amazing folks there. And good. So I'm getting sidetracked from our shout out, but I promise it's coming. So yeah, I encourage you to look it up. It is also a free conference. So they post other talks on YouTube after, so you can go if you're curious. But while I was there, my husband and I were volunteering, we were ushering. And so we were in our first little group of ushers, we were chatting with the people, and there was a few people from DC. So I started chatting with them, and we talked to Gregory, and he said he was studying at the JP2 Institute, and that's doing a PhD in theology. And I was like, what? Studying at the JP2 Institute in theology. And so it turns out like one of the cohort, there's like 4 of you guys in your cohort or something.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so there you go. So shout out to Gregory. It was great to meet you, and thanks for listening to our podcast.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll see you
see you on Monday.
see you Monday.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is coming out on Monday, so we'll be.
You probably saw. Yeah, there you go. That's right.
Again, it's like
anyways.
podcast inception. Yeah, that's
I know the timelines.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there's our little shout out for the week. Okay, and we're not doing God winks in Lent. I guess we're fasting from God winks today.
That's right.
So there you go. Okay, talk to you later, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of In the Thicket. If you like what you hear, give us a rating and hit that subscribe button. We have new episodes every Monday with more stories and honest conversations about life when the going gets rough, and the hope and humor amidst it all. We'd love for you to join our community on Instagram and Facebook at In the Thicket Podcast. While you're there, let us know how we can pray for you. God bless and see you next week.